Hello, hello. Welcome to Green Disruptors. Today we're going to be talking with Kit Nicholl, who is the CEO of Rewild. Rewild is a fintech building the next generation of loyalty powered by SKU-level data. They help banks, brands, and retailers reward customers for healthier and more sustainable purchasing choices. As the first loyalty system to reward people based on what they actually buy, not just how much, their platform connects transaction data with product-level insight to create a personalized reward that drives measurable impact for consumers, for business performance, and for the planet. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Hi, Kit. Welcome to Green Disruptors.
Hi, Megan. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited to talk to you today. So tell us where you are and a little bit about your background before we dive into Rewild.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm based in London. The whole company is headquartered here, although we have an office out in India as well, in Hyderabad. And in terms of my background, I studied international relations and languages at university. So following that, I moved very much into that career path. I worked as a political and security analyst for a number of years.
Very cool. I got to ask what languages you studied.
French and Italian.
Nice.
Did a year abroad in France as well, which is unbelievable. I'll definitely make sure that my kids try and do the same thing, because it's a really eye-opening thing to experience another culture and just be fully immersed in it.
100%.
So yeah, worked in that world for a little while, advising corporates and governments on politics and business and current affairs. Following that, I started working in strategic comms and PR, so running more domestic election campaigns and so on, after which a good friend of mine, Freddie, who's a fellow founder of Rewild, we got talking. He had a kernel of an idea, and I was looking to do something of my own as well, set up my own business, and it was just a serendipitous moment that was the launch of Rewild.
So tell me about that starting kernel of an idea. Like what did he see that he saw a potential solution for?
Yeah, sure. So he had just done a course at Cambridge University, Business and Net Zero, I think it was called.
Mm-hmm.
So he had been studying various different ways of creating solutions that responded to a growing interest around ESG and around net zero commitments by businesses, and wanted to do something more consumer facing. So the initial idea was to build a carbon tracking app. So think of it as very similar to MyFitnessPal or Fitbit. So which enable consumers to track their calories, being able to do that, but for your carbon footprint. So that was the initial idea that we set out with. And we built that product and that MVP. And over time realized that while the interest is there amongst consumers, there need to be some other co-benefits and some other incentives to really get people engaged, rather than just leaving them to their own devices to track their carbon footprint and potentially offset the emissions.
Right. I mean, that makes sense because, most carbon tracking apps are more business facing because they have ESG requirements they have to meet. So they have to use it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Whereas for consumers, sure, some people will take the time and track their carbon footprint out of interest and out of a willingness to find ways to reduce their emissions. But if you're looking to reach real scale, there are other components that need to be built in to ensure that you're meeting people where they need to be met in terms of certain activities.
You gotta work with human nature, or can't work against it.
Exactly right.
So what is the carrot, I guess?
Sure. That's sort of, it was at that point that we came across a fair amount of literature really around the vast action ambition gap in sustainability, whereby according to recent studies, 92% of people say they would like to make more sustainable choices in their day-to-day lives, in their day-to-day consumption, but that only 16% really follow through.
Oof, that's a pretty big gap.
Vast gap, which kind of got us thinking about the why. What are the blockers? What are the barriers? What are the incentives that could be built in to kind of nudge that silent majority into action in their day-to-day lives? And the solution we came up with is one that's, it's hiding in plain sight, which is a loyalty and rewards platform. So you've seen many of them out there. All of them, however, purely reward people based on the size of their baskets, just on spend.
Right.
What we wanted to do is reward people on the substance of what they're purchasing.
That is so great. So where are you in this process? Like, when did it get started and what's the current moment?
So We started developing the solution probably about a year ago. We
Mm-hmm.
partnered with Mastercard just
Smart
maybe.
move.
Indeed. Well, it was, in fact, we had heard their CSO, a Chief Sustainability Officer, talking about on a podcast, I think, in fact, talking
Mm.
about how they wanted to facilitate businesses in decoupling emissions growth from corporate growth. And we thought, that's exactly what we're looking to do. We're looking to build a loyalty solution so that more consumers opt for low carbon impact goods. And from a sell that into retailers and sell that into banks as something that they can roll out to their customers. That is effectively exactly what we'd be looking to do. We're helping them to lower their emissions, but we're helping them to drive sales and loyalty at the same time. So my business partner went out to Davos and managed to meet Ellen Jakowski, the CSO of Mastercard. And that was the start of the relationship, really. So we started co-developing the solution, currently known as Planet Points, although there's a rebrand currently in the works, so watch the space. But we developed it about a year ago and set about testing it at a university here in the UK. Pleased to say that we got some really fantastic results out of that pilot. We showed a 17% reduction in carbon emissions of the average basket amongst users versus their patterns of behavior prior to signing up to the scheme. And we also showed a 10% increase in frequency at which they were shopping and a 5.5% increase in basket value as well. So really driving both those commercial KPIs as well as the carbon reduction.
It's an incentive for the businesses you partner with and for the consumers as well.
Exactly
And for the planet.
Exactly right. So what we learned quite quickly was the fact, and that was part of the learnings from when we initially developed the carbon tracking app, was the fact that you can't, or you shouldn't perhaps, prioritize sustainability in your messaging of a product of this sort. Sustainability really is a nice to have for lots of people, but often isn't the primary driver of why they'll make one decision over another. So ensuring that we could build a product and then we could market a product so as to say, this will save you money, this will save you time, this is a gamified model which will be fun to engage with, when it's helping you to lower your carbon footprint and do good by the planet at the same time. That sort of reversal of the messaging tree is something that we've found to be incredibly effective. And speaking to other founders and other businesses who focus on sustainability and with a consumer lens to them have all experienced that same sort of learning curve.
I was going to say, I've talked to over 85 founders in the last year on this podcast, and that is the number one commonality. It's like you have to make the messaging not morality based. It has to make economic sense, and then people will fall in line.
Absolutely. As you know, we were launching the product into a time as well where there's a cost of living crisis and sustainability. Unsustainable. It's known typically as being more expensive, even though that is partially a bit of a fallacy in the sense that
that's becoming more of a fallacy than it used to be too.
Exactly, and often between one product and another, two identical products, one which is organic and and whatever it might be, but prioritizes those ethical considerations and sustainability considerations, probably will be a bit more expensive. Broadly speaking, though, a more sustainable diet is actually cheaper because it relies less on animal-based protein and so on. But you're absolutely right. From the get-go, we wanted to ensure that at no point was there any guilt or finger wagging involved, but rather encouraging people to choose the better option and rewarding them for doing so without any sort of stick involved in the operation.
I love that. I'm a former educator as well, so I spent a lot of my time in college studying intrinsic motivation, and so that never comes from the stick.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you'd be able to provide some good advice for us as well then in terms of how we market this and how we...
Well, I mean, it comes, I think in terms of like a 7-year-old, and I have kids, so it's like water what you want to see grow. So that's exactly kind of what your business model is doing. You're rewarding the positive choices. And so those are going to be the ones that you're steering them in that right direction via a reward system. It makes total sense. So back to current moment. So you've got these initial studies done showing the effectiveness. Kind of what's next? What is 2026 looking like?
2026 is looking like scale, hopefully. So those are the two. Well, scaling the solution is our main priority at the moment. We've got a decent user base already with very limited marketing to date.
Nice.
Partnering, finding those right strategic partners, I think, has been pretty crucial for us. So, as I said,
Hmm.
partnering with Mastercard and the distribution and scaling potential that that brings is going to be vital to our go-to-market strategy. And we've been working on that over the last couple of months and really using their partners as well as for distribution. So, our business model is a B2B2C business model. So
Yeah.
we sell
Hmm.
into banks and into retailers. So if we are able to embed our loyalty solution into a bank with, 5 million users, naturally that gives you access to all their client
Right.
base.
Instead of you trying to go after the 5 million one by one when there's no trust and no authority and no brand
Precisely that.
recognition at all. Yeah.
Exactly. And paying social media advertising for downloads is a very expensive game. So you need to get that word of mouth and those flywheels going in order to increase your audience, but a far quicker way of doing it, and in order to bolster the bottom line as well and ensure profitability is to sell directly into those retailers and banks, which is precisely our main priority over the coming months.
So what's the challenge with making those connections and forming those partnerships?
So I think being a small organization going into vast established monoliths,
Yeah.
it naturally a bit of a challenge. There tends to be a bit of reticence. Then again, that was our working assumption, at least, I guess, until a few
Mm.
months ago. Then again, the more conversations we've had, the more we've actually discovered a willingness to partner with small firms such as ourselves who are still in the early days in order to develop solutions that they perhaps haven't had. They would have the resources, but haven't been able to prioritize to date. I think the key benefit that we see when we're working with a big organization of that sort is that they really value how agile we can be, how fleet of foot,
Mm.
and how quickly we can develop new solutions rather than being a big cumbersome business where everything takes a long time to do. And so from those early conversations, things are looking incredibly positive, and having Mastercard backing us as well just adds that much more
Yeah, that's huge.
credibility.
Yeah, awesome. So usually I like to ask about like what the current bottleneck is. And of course, everyone always has bottlenecks. So there's got to be one.
Bottlenecks, yeah, absolutely. So scale and friction, I would say. So scale, we have just discussed. Friction, so the way our product works at present is that you scan your receipt and you
Mm.
pass that information, work out exactly what you purchased, layer on climate and health data, and then award points to you based on what you've chosen. So it works pretty well as a system and is something that has been proven out time and time again by different reward partners. There's a big one in the US called Fetch Rewards, for instance. I'm not sure if you've heard
Mm.
of them, but they have 18 million monthly users, and I think they scan 5 billion receipts a year. So proof that
Yeah.
user journey works. However, our ambition has always been to ensure that the process is as seamless as possible. And to that effect, we've already built out a solution whereby users can register their existing debit or credit card in our app. And then when they go to a partnered retailer, all they have to do is pay and they automatically
With
get
that
those
card.
with that
I
card.
like
Exactly.
that.
So that obviously makes it so much smoother as a mechanic. You immediately get those points. You don't have to print out the receipt. You don't have to take the picture. You don't have to potentially forget about it. That's where we're looking to get to. We built out the tech. However, we need scale when it comes to merchants because we need to embed within their point of sale systems to be able to deliver that information seamlessly. And getting that coverage is naturally going to take time. We're not going to suddenly partner with 2,000 retailers as of next year. So the receipt scanner was always seen as that bridge
The
to
bridge. Yeah.
universality. Yeah, exactly. So being able to use it in every retailer at any point with any card. However, we do want to move towards that more frictionless world.
Yeah.
So scaling amongst merchants is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges we have over the coming year or so.
So does this mean just like whatever point of sale system they use, you're tapped into that? Like if they use Square or if they use Apple Pay or whatever it is?
Exactly right. Yeah. So we've already built out the integrations that work with those point of sale providers. However, we need to strike up direct relationships with each of the retailers in order for them to pass us the transaction data.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Um, and so that is going to be a slightly longer process. But I think that goes back to the nub of what we're looking to do and why we decided to do it. So when we first started out, there were a few carbon tracking apps that did it on the transaction level.
Mhm.
We decided not to go down that route because we thought it was fundamentally not a particularly accurate way of giving people the carbon impact of their purchase or of awarding points. Because, for instance, if you walked into a Walmart, they would be giving you your carbon footprint based on the amount that you had spent in that store without knowing what you had purchased. So you
Oh,
get
yeah.
a carbon footprint for a $20 spend at Walmart. Whereas obviously you could have bought 2 steaks with that or 10 bags of lettuce, and the carbon footprints would be wildly different.
Very, yeah.
And that's why we decided to go down that itemized route of extracting item level data, SKU level data, so that we could see exactly what people were purchasing and award them on that basis. But that does come, of course, with complications. And we knew that it would be a slightly harder route to market, but one that we think over time will definitely pay dividends.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, where is this solution currently available? Like, are you still just in the UK? Or are you in the US? Like, what's the goal with locations?
With locations, currently, you can download the app anywhere and
Mhm.
start scanning your receipts. However, it is mainly UK centric at the moment. The grand majority
Mhm.
of our users are here in the UK. The grand majority of the rewards that you can redeem within the app are for UK brands and experiences. So that we want to ensure that we're building out our user base first here. But we have plans, and Mastercard's really keen on this as well, to ensure that we're breaking into Northern America and the EU within the next year or so. So
Yeah.
already plans afoot to ensure that it works across multiple different currencies, and that we're starting to gain a bit of traction with different merchants across those regions as well. So by the end of next year, if all goes to plan, I would like to think that by then we'd have a really strongly working product in
I was
across
gonna
North
say
America.
by next year I'll track the carbon footprint of my Christmas purchase.
Excellent. Exactly. That's the plan.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this is exciting. I've always been one of those. I mean, I would like to claim that I'm probably in the 13% that actually does what they say they wanted to do as far as the choices that I consciously make. So, but also, like, I made the mistake of, like, years ago, I said something stupid to my mother-in-law, and now she won't talk about sustainability with me, like, ever again. So it's like, obviously, the way you're doing it is the way it needs to be done. So I'm like, oh, you guys are solving the problem that I wish I could have solved.
All right. Well, that's music to my ears. Glad to hear it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all you're doing, and thanks for joining us today. This has been fun.
Not at all. Thanks for your time, Megan.
Yeah. All right. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Green Disruptors. If Kit's work at Rewild has your gears turning about the future of loyalty, consumer behavior, and climate impact, you're not alone. This is exactly where innovation is headed. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow the show, leave a review, and share this episode with someone building towards a more sustainable future. You can learn more about Rewild at rewild.eco. And stay connected with me on LinkedIn for upcoming guests, behind-the-scenes updates, and more conversations with people reshaping climate tech. This podcast is brought to you by Mountaintop Social Marketing, your growth partner for companies in sustainability and renewable energy.